From Ireland, 800 Years of Sadness, Episode 3, The Great Famine, Part 3. The great tragedy of the Great Famine was the most traumatic event in European history in the 19th century. Recent writers describe it, rightly, as genocide. Michael Davitt, born in 1846, the great activist for land reform and home rule, used the word Holocaust. As early as 1846, the Cork Examiner used the word Holocaust. I prefer the title, The Great Starvation. Michael Davitt, about his family's eviction in Mayo in 1850, said, "Failing to wipe off all arrears, we were one morning thrown out on the roadside and our little house and home pulled down before our eyes by the reigning institution, the Crowbar Brigade. I was then but 4.5 years old, yet I have a distinct remembrance of that morning's scene. The remnants of our household furniture flung about the road, the roof of our house falling in and the thatch taking fire, my mother and father looking on with 4 young children." Later, living in England, he said that he often dreamed about avenging his parents' eviction. Timpat Coogan, when asked if more than 1 million had died, said probably more, because modern scholarship points out averted deaths and the fact that families died and there was no one left to record the deaths, but probably it's somewhere nearer 9 million than 8 million when the famine broke out, and it came down to somewhere nearer 6 when the famine was over in 1851. He also said, Palmerston said flatly one day to his colleagues, "Look," he said, "don't we all agree that the solution to the land problem is to get the surplus population off the land?" And it's recorded that, with a shudder, they went back to other business. These were the people who imposed the opium laws on the Chinese at the same time. They were imperialists. They wanted to rid the Irish land of Irish people, to replace the Irish peasants with cattle farming. Dead bodies didn't matter. The London Times supported the genocide policy, saying, "We look forward to the day when a Celt will be as rare on the banks of the Shannon as a red man on the banks of the Hudson." The London Times on the 30th of October 1846 said, "Whole fleets of provisions were continually arriving from the land of starvation." Put simply, huge amounts of food were removed from Ireland while many, many thousands starved. The chief architect of English policies was Charles Trevelyan, Director of Government Relief. He was knighted in 1848 for services to Ireland. He stated, "The great evil with which you have to contend is not the physical evil of the famine, but the moral evil of the selfish, perverse and turbulent character of the Irish people." Trevelyan had decided that economic policy and not coddling the poor was more important than the starvation of millions. How did it get to this? Put simply, the British ruling class saw Ireland as having military value to her enemies in time of war. Also, absentee English landowners took the land and rented it back to the Irish. They evicted many for any reason, even no reason. Attempts to establish industries in Ireland were crushed by the British as they wanted to use Ireland as a food basket. It was an artificial famine, a famine that caused massive desolation. Some claimed it was caused by the potato blight, but at the same time, potatoes failed all over Europe with no famine except in Ireland. Food left Ireland in huge quantities under military protection. The famine was the worst humanitarian disaster in Europe in the 1800s. The population of Ireland dropped by nearly 33%. Timpat Coogan estimates from 9 million down to 6 million. The Great Famine had profound and devastating effects on the country, with a massive decline in the population and widespread social disruption, poverty and hardship. Thousands upon thousands lost their homes and land. Nationalism grew, and there were long-term effects on Irish culture and the Irish language. The Great Starvation changed Ireland, its people, and how land was used. The effects linger to this day. Within 50 years, the population almost halved. It brought Ireland to its lowest point ever, with mass deaths and mass emigration, all happening while food was being taken from the country under armed guard in huge quantities. The government in London made token efforts to help at the start, and then left the Irish to starve to death, or if lucky, to flee the country. Few facts worth remembering. The Irish famine, the Great Starvation, was caused by a blight that destroyed the potato crop, the removal of massive amounts of food from Ireland, and the British government's policy to clear the surplus population from the land. Palmerston, a powerful member of the English government during the Great Famine, said flatly one day to his colleagues when they were discussing the famine, "Look, don't we all agree that the solution to the land problem is to get the surplus population of the land?" And it's recorded that, with a shudder, they went back to other business. Nassau Senior, Queen Victoria's economist, feared that existing policies would not kill more than 1 million Irish in 1848, and that will scarcely be enough to do much good. In 1849, Sir Charles Wood, Chancellor of the Exchequer, wrote to a landlord in Ireland, "We must not complain," he said, "of what we really want to obtain." In 1849, the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland wrote, "I don't think there is another legislature in Europe that would disregard such suffering as now exists in the west of Ireland or coldly persist in a policy of extermination." In 1851, as the Great Famine ended, the British Census Commissioners, after mass starvation, deaths, evictions and emigration, wrote that Ireland had benefited from the Great Famine. Maybe you remember the old nursery rhyme. There's 10 verses. Following is verse 1. "This old man, he played one. He played knick-knack on my drum. With a knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home." This is believed to be about Irish beggars in England during the Great Famine. They sold knick-knacks door to door while playing the rhyme with spoons. In some cases they were given a whack and sent on their way. Sometimes their dog was given a bone. That was an episode from my book, Ireland, 800 Years of Sadness. You can get the book on Amazon in electronic form or as a paperback. Also, you can go to core.au.